In the Actilos Empire, they pop out tons of heirs, but only the strongest gets the throne. Basically, they off each other till only one's left standing, and that survivor becomes emperor. The youngest of the emperor's kids, and the youngest in this bloody ceremony, a 13-year-old prince, iced all his siblings. He tied their hair together and dragged them behind him to the old ruler. The emperor, moved by the young prince's strength, was stoked and ready to praise him, but then a sword went right through his chest. The young prince, grinning like an angel in front of his blood-coughing dad, said he was bored of waiting. He wanted the throne right then and there. Plus it bugged him that anyone was above him. And that's how he became the current emperor of Actilos, Ranierro Actilos. Angelica's standing at the wedding altar next to the emperor, 'cause she was sold to this tyrant as his bride. The priest tells them to seal the deal with a kiss, and when she looks at Ranierro, she's shocked, 'cause he looks totally different. But then he cracks this totally sinister smile, stoked that Angelica finally woke up, 'cause he was about to get bored. Truth is, all this is happening inside a novel, and Angelica got yeeted right into the scene where she's marrying the emperor. The novel's main character, the goddess Seraphina, is like the ultimate flower blooming in the Actilos Empire. Before meeting the goddess, Emperor Ranierro was always just plotting to conquer more land. In Seraphina's clear eyes, he saw his own blood-stained reflection and starts feeling all kinds of intense stuff for her, love and hate. Ranierro snatches her from the temple and drags her back to the empire, planning to make her just like him, but she just gets even more gorgeous. The emperor's obsession went through the roof, and he iced Seraphina's first love, the Knight Eden. The goddess can't take it anymore and loses it, and Ranierro loses his head. Literally. There were other characters in the novel too, but Angelica got stuck in the Empress's body, who was practically a ghost in the story. Since divorce is a no-go in the Actilos Empire, and you can only remarry after your spouse kicks the bucket, Ranierro, after stealing the goddess, came back from the temple, and the first thing he did was chop off his wife's head. So, Angelica gets yeeted into the body of the Empress, who gets her head chopped off at the start of the story. She's read tons of these isekai novels, but usually they possess the villainess and save themselves by not doing the bad guy stuff. Seeing no other way out, Angelica decides that on the day Ranierro goes to the temple, she'll fake her death and ditch this place. She's stoked about this idea, because the emperor won't check if she's really dead, since he only killed her to make a goddess his wife. Until then, she decides to pretend she doesn't even exist and stay out of Ranierro's sight as much as possible. Lost in thought, Angelica doesn't even notice the emperor suddenly standing right in front of her. He smirks, all nasty, and asks how long she plans to pretend she doesn't see him and ignore his royal presence. Angelica instantly replies that she could never be so disrespectful to him. Taking an awkward step, she accidentally treads on the hem of her dress and eats it, sprawled out on the floor. As embarrassed as she is about falling, she's glad she answered his question quickly. 'Cause Ranierro hates when things are slow. Some servants even lost their heads for not fixing things the emperor didn't like fast enough. Stepping on her dress, Ranierro smirks, giving the empress a chance to explain herself. Angelica, trying to excuse herself, made up some story about a chronic illness that makes her faint with her eyes open. Noticing he's not buying it, she adds that Ranierro's aura is so strong, a tiny person like her just can't handle it. When asked if it's his fault, she immediately backpedals, explaining that nobody blames the sun if they stare at it too long and go blind. The emperor wants to know if she's going to spend the rest of her life avoiding looking at him because she'll faint. Trying to come up with the right answer as fast as she can, Angelica asks for his permission to look at him and raises her eyes. Ranierro's pleased with his choice of empress, who doesn't show any unnecessary pride, grovels before him and answers instantly. Grabbing her by the throat, he promises to reward her with an answer to any question she asks him, knowing her life now depends on her question, because if he doesn't like it, she's done for. Angelica asks why he chose her. Ranierro's totally bummed by the question, thinks it's lame, basic, and old-fashioned. The emperor's scared he'll die of boredom answering it, but Angelique gets her favor because he promised her an answer. When Ranierro announced he was getting hitched, so many nobles and kings sent portraits of their daughters. They filled the whole damn room. He ordered the portraits hung on the wall, then plopped down on a poof at the foot of the bed and chucked a dagger at him. Ranierro's amused remembering how the blade nailed Angelique right in the left eye, and he takes back what he said about a boring answer. But his mood shifts quick, and propping the girl's chin up with the toe of his shoe, he tells her to try harder. Otherwise, he promises to kill her, and Angelique promises him she'll do better and be more interesting. Ranierro leaves the room, and flopping right onto the floor, the girl's just glad the wedding day went well, and she ain't dead yet. In the morning, Angelique wakes up to the Emperor's hands under the covers, touching her body, and she jumps up. Ranierro's pissed she slept in till 9 and calls her lazy. As he gets dressed, he calls her basic, boring, bland, and totally drab, then bails out of the bedroom. The maid suggests the Empress starts her morning routine with a bath, and the girl's like, yeah, okay. Since Ranierro called her boring and bland, she's hoping he won't be coming around anymore. Angelique needs to find a way to escape, so she asks the maid what the date is. May 19th. The Emperor met Serafina at the Temple of Tunia in the dead of winter, meaning her fate's still like 7 months out. Up until last night, the girl remembered nothing about Angelique except the name, but her body's memories are slowly seeping into her mind. Angelique is the second princess of the Kingdom of Anro, and she's got an older brother and sister, and a younger brother. She's royalty, so she should have studied the basics of history and geography, which could help her figure out where to run. The border of the country she escapes to can't be too far from the palace, and it can't be at war with the Empire. The security there can't be too tight, and it doesn't matter if the country's rich and powerful or weak. Look, either way, once the Emperor bites it this spring, the whole country's gonna crumble. It's all built on him. While she's eating, Angelica notices the ladies-in-waiting keeping their distance, and figures that's a good thing. She can't get attached, not when she's planning her escape. That'd just be asking for trouble. But first, she's gotta act normal, play the part of a good empress for a while. She asks the ladies their names, and the older one says she's the Marquis Jacques' mom. The younger one's Mayron, Countess Locke's wife. Angelica's surprised they're both from such big-deal families. She doesn't get why they're so awkward around her. To lighten the mood, she asks them to help her get used to the castle. The Empress asks about her schedule and finds out there's nothing official planned for today, so she can chill. Since Angelica's got 7 months to kill, she decides to take the offer. But every day after, it's the same story. Now the girl gets why they're acting weird. The ladies are avoiding her. It's messed up that the Empress has no schedule. Trying to figure out her next move, she remembers her character, Angelica, brought a maid named Sizin with her from back home. So the next morning, over tea, the Empress asks the Marchioness where the maid is and why she hasn't seen her around. As far as Jacques knows, Sizin is in training to become a proper lady-in-waiting for Actilos. Angelica doesn't mind the maid getting trained, but she thinks it's weird that she, as her owner, knows nothing about it. The Marchioness figured if the Empress wasn't asking about Sizin, she was already in the loop. Realizing she's dealing with a real slippery one, Angelica decides to change tactics and, apologizing, admits she messed up. Knowing that she's feeding her ambition and not her ego, the girl decides to eat crow and asks again with a smile if she can see Sizin. Sitting at home with her son, Marchioness Jacques is fuming because the Empress isn't as dumb as she first thought. The woman is pissed that some brat from a tiny kingdom dares to argue with her. Her daughter Sylvia walks into the room, drawn by the noise, wanting to know what's going on. The Marchioness is convinced Sylvia wouldn't be suffering like this if she'd become Empress. She's bitter that the family missed Sylvia's marriageable age, waiting for the Emperor to choose her. Sylvia begs her mother not to hate Angelica so much. It was the Emperor's choice, and asks her brother to say something too. But the Marchioness doesn't want to hear it. She's furious that she waited all this time for nothing, cheapening her daughter. Unable to bear her aggression, Sylvia runs from the room in tears, and the Marquis tells his mother not to get so worked up. As Deputy Minister of Finance, and being close to the Emperor, he's sure the Emperor will get rid of his wife as soon as they give him a good enough reason. Realizing all they need is a pretext, mother and son Jacques decide to whisper Angelica's flaws in the Emperor's ear at the right time. Because Ranierro has a rule. Anything that could harm the country gets destroyed immediately, and all they need is a little nudge. Right now, the country's in the budget approval period, and all agency funds go through both the Emperor and the Empress for approval. But Angelica's completely neglecting her duties, and anyone can see that's hurting Actilos' prosperity. Things were chill for a few days after Sazine came back. That maid really knew her boss. Even though the head lady in waiting, the Marchioness Jaxiu, kept giving the Empress the cold shoulder, she decided to ignore it. But now Angelica realizes that was a mistake. The Emperor summoned her, and it's gotta be the lady in waiting's doing. Angelica doesn't know who came to Ranierro with them, so just in case, she bows lower than the others. Turns out it's the Marchioness Jaxiu, who's brought the Emperor the budget proposal for the third quarter. The Marchioness brings up a problem with the funds for the Empress's palace. Ranierro's impressed by Angelica's guts, 'cause he thought she'd approved way too much money for her palace. But then the Marchioness drops a bomb. The Empress hasn't been managing the palace at all. She's just been partying. According to him, she hasn't shown any interest in doing her duties, and they found someone else who's been handling things for her. Angelica gets it now. The Marchioness has been deliberately keeping her out of the loop to set up this whole charade. So, according to the Marquis, on top of everything else, there's been some spending on entertainment, see? And even though the officials pretended not to notice, he just couldn't stand by. Even if this guy's full of it, the girl's got no way to prove she's not lying. The Marquise has been keeping Angelica locked away this whole time, and Sazine is the only one who could actually stick up for her in the palace. When the Emperor asks Jacques what he wants now, the dude says he's got no hidden agenda. He's laying it on thick about his loyalty to the imperial family, leaving all the decisions up to Ranierro himself. The girl can't believe these guys are trying to pull the wool over the Emperor's eyes with such a lame excuse. Angelica sees Ranierro's face, like he's silently begging her to come up with something before the Emperor gets bored and blows a gasket. She says it breaks her heart that the Emperor's stuck doing routine stuff when they could have just run the budget project by her. To show how sorry she is to the Emperor, she offers him something fun, something that'll cheer Ranierro up. When the Emperor gives her a look, all interested, Angelica suggests a little human hunt. The girl's offering up all three of them as prey, which is totally freaking out the Jacques family. The book mentioned hunting humans, and Angelique knew Ranierro would be all over that idea. But she needed to save her own skin, so she reminds the Emperor about her chronic illness. Angelique explains that hunting her is like hunting a sick rabbit, totally not worth the effort. When asked if she's trying to dodge being hunted, she promises to train and be worthy prey by winter. The Marquis is pissed at Angelique, saying her idea is total garbage and a dumbass suggestion. Taking charge, the girl accuses Jacques of not even telling her about the budget in the first place. So, the Marquis should be honored to be the prey, since the Emperor wasted so much time on this routine issue. The girl's speech ends with Ranierro clapping, 'cause he's obviously digging having her as Empress. The Marquis begs him not to subject his old mother to such cruelty and to just make him the prey. The Emperor decrees it's not cruelty, but an honor, to be hunted for his amusement. Ranierro, snapping his fingers for the guards, agrees with Angelica. All three are guilty. In his view, the Empress failed to stop the Marquis and his mother from bothering him, and they're guilty of trying to use the Emperor to settle a personal grudge against his wife. Ranierro suspected something like this might happen, since the Marquis's younger sister wasn't chosen to be his bride. He knew it all along, but let it play out, because he has no reason to care about such petty greed. Wondering if Sylvia could be such an empress, Ranierro approaches Angelica, lifts her chin, and kisses her. Noting that she makes no mistakes, he scoops her up in his arms and asks if she can avoid them forever. The next day, things changed at the Empress's palace. The Marchioness became prey and lost her head lady-in-waiting position. This position was burdensome for the Empire's maids, and Suzanne was given the job. After the head lady-in-waiting got canned and all the crap that went down in the palace, nobody was sleeping on the Empress anymore. Since Angelica didn't hit the social scene, people started seeing her as this cold, stuck-up empress. Even though the rumors bugged her, she threw herself into her empress duties, so she was swamped. One day, leaving the castle, Angelica spots a girl standing in the courtyard and wonders who she is. A servant tells her it's Henry Jixu's little sister, Sylvia. You know, the guy from that human hunt thing. Turns out, the girl came to the castle asking for an audience with the Empress. Angelica's confused why Sylvia's only showing up now, considering her family's fate was sealed days ago. Apparently, the girl's been standing there for days, ever since the sentence was handed down. Angelica agrees to see Sylvia, and the girl respectfully introduces herself. The Empress apologizes for making her wait so long, but makes it clear right away that she can't overturn the punishment. But to her surprise, the girl straight up says her family got what they deserved. Dropping to her knees in front of Angelica, Sylvia begs to be hired, saying there's a maid position open now that her idiot mom's gone. The Empress can't wrap her head around why her enemy's kid wants to work for her. Maybe she's planning to lie low, watch her, and wait for the perfect chance to strike and get revenge for her mom and brother. Sylvia explains they raised her to be a companion for the Emperor, or a lady-in-waiting and ally for the Empress. She's been locked up most of her life. She has no influence, and now that her family's fallen and become prey, she has nowhere else to go. Of course, Sylvia's heartbroken about her family. I mean, they're still family, despite how they treated her. But fighting back tears, the girl confesses that, first and foremost, she just wants to live. Lying in bed before sleep, Angelica thinks the only one who wasn't moved by Sylvia's act is Ranierro. But this ain't a situation where you can decide based on pity. There's a good chance the girl hates her. Angelica gets out of bed, walks onto the balcony to grab some fresh air, clear her head. Suddenly, Ranierro pops up in front of her, and she screams, totally caught off guard. Angelica's like, "What are you doing here?" But the Emperor doesn't think he needs a reason to visit his wife. He asks how her day was, then goes on about how stoked he is that his prey started training. Ranierro decided to spice things up, add 2 rules. Give the prey weapons, and if they survive 3 hours, they're free. The Emperor asks again how Angelica's day went, and she's about to tell him about Sylvia. Before she can even get a word out, Ranierro's like, "Just accept the girl, it'll be interesting." He suggests sending Sylvia to the hunting grounds as a hunter, to kill her mom and brother, and prove her loyalty to Angelica. The Empress is surprised how easily he figured out why she was hesitant, but to him, normal people's doubts are obvious. Ranierro proposes taking the girl on as a lady-in-waiting, but only if she can handle being a hunter first. Angelica agrees, but seeing her hesitation, the Emperor offers her a glass and promises to give the order for Sylvia himself. He smirks, thinking the Empress is too weak to even issue such a command herself. Ranierro Actilos was born human, but he's closer to a god, seeing people as nothing more than insects. There's no tragic backstory that made him this cruel. He was simply born pure evil. Suddenly, he throws the glass of wine he offered all over Angelica, calling her unbelievably cowardly. The Emperor suggests she forget her fear for a little while she's lost in pleasure. And this vision of absolute dominating evil, more beautiful and powerful than anyone, grabs her and throws her onto the bed. Lying next to her, Ranierro comments on how small and weak Angelica is when she needs to become good prey. She remembers her promise to the Emperor, but the truth is, she has absolutely no desire to be prey. She'll stall for time, and when Ranierro goes off to war, she'll bolt. And when he meets Serafina, he won't even bother looking for her. The Emperor just remembered the second rule he added to the hunt. He wants Angelica to participate as a hunter, too. Ranierro thinks she's got nothing to worry about, since the prey can't hurt the hunters, right? That's the rule. But Angelica's convinced that mom and son Jakshu, with no way out, will take her down with them if they get the chance. And even though Ranierro came up with all these rules, he knows damn well they don't mean jack. The hunt's set for the solstice, which is less than a month away. Angelica was planning on schmoozing the aristocrats before the big day, but survival comes first, so she canceled all the social stuff. As a hunter, she's allowed to check out the prey's training on the parade ground. In the Actilos Empire, everyone learns martial arts, so women and kids can join the fight if things go south. According to Angelica's lady-in-waiting, Duchess Nirma, the Jaksuis were slacking off in training until yesterday. But everything changed after the Emperor paid them a visit. And, probably told them about the new rules. They're looking for the best teacher for Angelica, and she wants to learn how to shoot. If she gets within striking distance, she's toast, so she needs to keep her distance from the target. The Empress is asking Nirma to teach her how to use the weapon with the longest range. Starting her archery training, Angelica complains about how heavy the bow is, which surprises the maid, since even kids can hold one. Pulling herself together, she gets up, grabs the bow and arrows, and takes aim, hoping to at least get close to the target. The Emperor summoned Sylvia to talk about her wanting to become Angelica's lady-in-waiting. He tells her about the condition. She has to become a hunter at the Solstice Day festival. Disappointed that she's not reacting with the surprise he expected, Ranierro orders the guards to take Sylvia away. The Emperor learns from his aide that Angelica canceled all social events to focus on learning archery. He smirks, calling her a scaredy cat, and then finds out that she fainted. Angelica wakes up in bed, muttering to herself. She thought being a princess would at least come with some kind of endurance training. Ranierro pops up out of nowhere, confused. Why is she talking like she doesn't remember her own childhood? Hearing the Emperor came to her after she passed out, Angelica thanks him for his concern. Ranierro sees she's still pale and thinks she's an idiot for not knowing to rest when she's tired. Seriously, does no one in this country get that people can just be weak? Angelica starts crying, explaining to Ranierro that she knows she needs rest, but she's just trying really hard not to die. He smirks, declares the Empress won't die, and orders the maid to bring cold water and a towel. Ranierro puts the towel on Angelica's forehead, but he quickly gets bored of taking care of her and calls for a lady-in-waiting to help. Seeing the Emperor sprawled in a chair, she senses danger. His movements scream boredom. Angelica asks the Duchess to bring some food, and 10 minutes later, Ranierro's spoon-feeding the Empress, shocked at how little she eats. The Emperor needs her to train hard and not become easy prey. Otherwise, he won't be able to hunt her come winter. According to the Empress, that's exactly why she's looking for a top-notch training mentor. When he finds out Angelica hasn't found a coach yet, he decides to start training her himself. She gratefully accepts his offer and promises to try and become a skilled hunter. Waking up in the morning, the Empress feels much better. The potion Ranierro gave her really worked. He gave her medicine that knocked her out cold, stayed by her side all night, and only left at dawn. Angelica asks Saizen when the Emperor summoned her to the training grounds and gets pissed when the maid doesn't know. Throwing herself together to avoid angering him with her tardiness, she races to the training field. She barely has time to be relieved that the Emperor isn't there yet when she hears his voice behind her, annoyed that she woke up late. Ranierro's surprised by her bow, which looks like a kid's toy, but she explains she doesn't have the strength to draw the string yet. The Emperor hands her a bow that fits her build perfectly, feels even lighter and comfier than the last one. After an hour of training, Ranierro's announcing for like the 67th time how Angelica could be dead from the same damn attack. Target practice bored the Emperor after half an hour, so he grabs wooden swords and starts her on a fencing lesson. Skipping the theory and basics, he goes straight into hardcore training, pointing out all the girl's weaknesses. Angelica's getting knocked on her ass over and over, and the Emperor's baffled why she keeps missing his attacks. She explains that maybe the problem isn't her, but that Ranierro's just way too freaking fast. Eventually, the Emperor actually starts explaining basic combat fundamentals to Angelica. He's griping about how slow she is, but it doesn't look like he wants to quit the training session. Angelica can't figure out why Ranierro, who's bored by everything, is still bothering to train her. She thanks him for the training and promises to keep trying, even if it takes time. And the Emperor, after a pause, suddenly pats her head. No matter how huge the Actilos Empire is, rumors spread like wildfire. They haven't even made an official announcement, but the nobles are already buzzing about the hunting festival. Word is, the Emperor was all over Angelica after she fainted, then waited 2 hours on the parade ground to personally train her. The handmaidens are the ones spreading this stuff, of course, but it actually benefits the Empress. It solidifies her position. Then again, for someone planning an escape, having high society focused on you is kind of a pain. But right now, showing a good relationship with the Emperor is a must, especially in case another Jax shows up. To show the Empress their support, gifts are constantly being sent to her from all over the Empire, even from beyond its borders. Angelica hears that the hunting grounds construction will be finished in 4 days, and she'll be able to check it out soon. She knows that, no matter how hard she tries, it'll be tough to win against Jax's mom and kid. So Angelica wants to gather as much intel as possible, something that'll give her an edge in this fight. As Ranierro kept grinding, he started losing faith in the human brain, little by little. Angelique, doubting her swordsmanship, figured she'd better focus on her running drills. The Emperor paused, then decided to show the girl around the hunting grounds. Seeing the place prepped, Angelique was once again struck by the sheer scale of everything Ranierro did. From the tower, you get a killer view and a real edge with a bow. The Emperor wanted her to know he'd gone all out for her comfort, and she appreciated it. After that, Angelique met with Ranierro every morning and practiced her archery. Then, she'd spend late nights prepping for the summer solstice festival. Even though she was worried about not seeing Sylvia since that day, the Empress was too busy to worry about anything else. One morning, Ranierro brought Angelique a dress, wanting her to wear it to the gala, assuming she didn't die on the hunt. All right, the summer solstice is finally here, and the hunt's on this afternoon. Angelica walks up to the Emperor's throne and asks Ranierro if she's late. He laughs, tells her he's been waiting 2 hours, then grabs her hand and pulls her onto his lap. Sitting there like a cute married couple, they go over Angelica's hunting route. The celebration's announced, and Ranierro, holding her hand, greets the crowd. The feast kicks off, but Angelica can't swallow a thing. She's so damn nervous. Ranierro slides a glass towards her, the stuff inside different from what's in his, and tells her to drink up. He whispers in her ear to chug the whole thing, and Angelica obediently empties the glass. She's freaked out, not knowing what was in that drink, because her arms and legs are suddenly burning up. Ranierro tells her to hang in there, and soon enough, she'll be seeing things in a whole new light. She just cracks up laughing, and when she sees everyone staring, she tells them to enjoy their meal. Suddenly, Angelica's got this huge appetite. She's chowing down, and the food tastes way better than usual. Everything went sideways after that drink. Her body kept going from light and hot to heavy as hell, but instead of freaking out, she's actually pumped for the hunt. While she's getting ready, Ranierro gives her a gift. Pure, concentrated poison, extracted from a Soleo dart frog. The Emperor wanted her to know that she knows what to do with it. The Empress comes out. The guests are all cheering, and Angelica's bummed they won't get a good view from behind the fence. She scans the hunting field, looking for her target, and then she spots Sylvia standing right next to her. Sylvia's practically shaking with nerves, just repeating to herself over and over that everything's gonna be okay. That pity Angelica felt a few weeks back, looking at Sylvia kneeling there, now feels like a total scam. If she nails this assignment, she gets a reward. But if she screws it up, none of it'll even matter. The Emperor shows up, keeps saying Angelica won't die, and still ignores the question about what was slipped into her drink. The hunt's declared, and the Empress is itching to get out into the field. Angelica, having prepped her arrows with the poison Ranierro gave her, takes her spot on the observation tower and focuses on the sounds. Suddenly, she hears a crunching sound from below, but when she takes aim, the Empress sees it's Sylvia. The girl wants to say something to Angelica, but just then, the Marchioness Jaxu comes up behind her and grabs her daughter by the hair. With a malicious glint in her eyes, she's looking forward to ripping Sylvia's heart out of her chest and presenting it to the Emperor. The woman hopes that'll win her Ranierro's favor, while Angelica's up in the tower taking aim at her. The Empress fires, but misses, and spotting where the arrow came from, the Marchioness glares at her with pure hate. Taking advantage of her mother being distracted, Sylvia throws herself at her and knocks her to the ground. Grabbing a rock from the ground and holding the Marchioness down, the girl, like a woman possessed with the will to live, slams her head again and again. As Angelique descends the tower, she wishes Ranierro could have seen this view. Dropping to her knees before the Empress, Sylvia suggests they take the spoils for themselves. Angelique tells the girl she's proud of her, and drawing her dagger, slits the Marchioness's throat. Just then, Henry Jaxue emerges from the trees, stunned by his mother's death. The Empress aims at the Marquise, who's shaking with rage. The arrow misses, but grazes his shoulder. Suddenly, Angelique feels a sharp pain in her muscles, like they're about to tear, and she collapses. Henry's already swinging his axe at the girl, but then Ranierro appears behind him and runs him through with his sword. Approaching Angelique, he smiles, explaining the potion she drank. It lets you push past your physical limits, boosts your morale, and eliminates fear. But it overloads the body too much, and the effect wears off suddenly, so it can't be used in warfare. Ranierro swigs some painkiller and kisses Angelica, passing the medicine to her with his lips. The pain fades, and the Emperor shows the girl the prey she caught. Grinning, he announces tonight's reception in honor of the newly crowned Empress. Stepping onto the castle balcony, Ranierro declares to the crowd that Angelica personally caught her own prey. The people fall to their knees before the imperial couple, and the girl is once again convinced that the people of this country worship strength. The celebratory evening begins, and upon entering the hall, Angelica takes her place beside Ranierro. Since the Emperor must perform the first dance at the ball, He and Angelica stand to dance. Suddenly, the girl feels herself losing balance and falling, but she doesn't grab Raniero's outstretched hand. She hits the ground hard, but the Emperor smiles because she didn't mess up, even now. Because if she had grabbed his outstretched hand, she would have touched his body without permission. And that's unacceptable. Out of nowhere, to Angelica's shock, Ranierro leans down, scoops her up, and puts her back on the throne. Sylvia shows up to greet the royal couple, and the guests start whispering about how the girl has no shame. One of the nobles demands that the Marquis's daughter be thrown out of the imperial hall. But Angelica points out that this girl sacrificed her own mother to prove her loyalty. The Empress figures Sylvia might even be more loyal than he is, the Emperor's right-hand man. Hearing her arrogant speech, Ranierro starts laughing. He finds her manner interesting and amusing. Following the Emperor, everyone gathered starts laughing too, and Angelica feels like they're all forcing it, like puppets. Turning to the Emperor, Sylvia asks him for the reward he promised her. Just as he promised, Ranierro appoints the girl as a lady-in-waiting to the Empress, and she thanks him for it. Truth is, she could have gotten the handmaiden gig after the ball, but Sylvia made a point of doing it publicly, in front of the nobles. Getting it straight from Ranierro himself, she just proved she's the Empress's girl now, and nobody can mess with her. Wiped out after schmoozing with everyone inside, Angelica heads out to the courtyard and plops down by the fountain. The girl jumps up when she spots the Emperor heading her way. Holding a flower, he remarks that she looks like nothing happened, even though she just iced somebody. Saying a weak person would be freaking out right now after killing someone, he tucks the flower into her hair. Fact is, even if it was self-defense, Angelica's a killer now, but she gets that feeling guilty ain't gonna change anything. She thanks Ranierro for showing up and taking out Henry when he did, because otherwise, she'd be a goner. The Emperor dosed Angelica with something to make her put on a good show with her behavior. Even though Ranierro knew about the side effects, he didn't feel guilty, because everything was going according to plan, one step at a time. But he couldn't guess how the Empress would react. Would she feel guilty, or would she bail, totally freaked out? But then Angelica, who he thought wouldn't make it to the banquet, shows up like nothing's wrong, wearing the dress Ranierro gave her. And in that moment, he felt a little thrill, like he was seeing her face for the very first time. The Emperor's finding all this weird, gives her a gentle smile, reaches out his hand to Angelica, and asks her to come back. Once inside the palace, the girl's surprised, because Ranierro is leading her to his private part of the castle. They step into a huge room, a secret chamber only the Emperor knows about, off limits even to the servants. Ranierro takes off his shirt and walks up to the stunned Angelica and kisses her. Then he slides into a hot pool right there in the room and calls the girl over to him. Dipping her toes in the water, Angelica wonders why the Emperor's showing her this place that nobody knows. Fed up with her shyness, Ranierro grabs her leg and pulls her into the water with him. Totally flustered, she doesn't know how to act, and when the Emperor calls her Angie and says she can touch him, she hugs him. Ranierro carries Angelica to the bed, and they spend the night together. She falls asleep, and the Emperor thinks about how she's gotten even bolder, since he didn't give her permission to sleep. Now, the Empress is a figure of Actilos, universally recognized, and from tomorrow on, everyone will treat her differently. After all, the fact that she beat experienced Actilos martial artists, after only a month of training, means she's got serious potential. Suddenly, in her sleep, Angelica starts moaning, sounding like she's about to choke. Lifting her head, Ranierro gives her mouth to mouth, then kisses her, but she bites his lip in her sleep. The Empress opens her eyes with tears. She dreamt that her prey, head severed, was chasing her with an axe. The girl's terrified. She's shaking all over and clings to Ranierro, who hugs her to comfort her. In the morning, Angelica is sleeping so soundly that the Emperor had to repeat her name several times to wake her up. He's pissed at her disobedience and orders her to wash up and prepare to apologize. Angelica's feeling awkward as hell eating breakfast in the main palace, especially with the Emperor giving her that heavy, brooding stare. She asks if she can head home after breakfast, but Ranierro just smiles and says, "This is your home now." She tries to brush it off, saying she's still half asleep, but the Emperor thinks Angelica slept just fine. Besides, she needs to get back to her wing of the castle, because Sylvia's supposed to arrive at the Empress's palace today. Angelica notices the cut on Ranierro's lip, and when he tells her she did it, she can't believe it. She'd be dead if she'd actually hurt the emperor. He agrees, then points out how serious her offense was, and that she has to face the consequences. Since the empress wants to go back to her lands, Ranierro decides her punishment will be that he's not letting her go. The emperor usually goes through letters in the morning, then it's meetings all afternoon, and physical training in the evening. Standing next to him at his desk, Angelica wonders if she can slip away during one of those state meetings. Noticing she's been standing the whole time, Ranierro orders a servant to bring a chair so the empress can sit beside him. The emperor rips open another envelope and finds a letter from the Temple of Tunia. The Temple of Tunia, that's a deserted shrine out in the barren northwest. The letter talks about the few remaining believers in the God of Mercy, who gave up all the good land to the world, leaving only rough stuff for their kids. Right now, there's some tension building up between Actilos and the Kingdom of Sambinia. Ranierro's getting bored reading the same old letters begging for help. He turns to Angelique and sees she's out cold again, so he walks over and shakes her shoulder to wake her up. She wakes up and says she feels bad just sitting around and asks if she can at least read the letters he's already looked at. I mean, yeah, the Empress has a right to know what's going on with state affairs, but Ranierro thinks it's a little too soon for that. Ignoring her question, he turns away and keeps working in silence, and Angelique's wondering what he could be mad about. The Emperor sees how scared and confused she is, and it cracks him up so much he decides to play along. So Ranierro dragged Angelica around all day. Lunch, meetings, even the night training session. Only after all that could the Empress finally break free and get back to her place, where her maids fussed over her. She was going to throw Sylvia a party for becoming a lady-in-waiting, but Ranierro screwed it up today. Duchess Nirma tells Angelica how impressed she was by yesterday's hunt. She says Her Majesty's now a mother to the nation, genuinely loved by everyone, and they're all dying to meet her. Now's the perfect time for Angelica to get back to that party she postponed, and Nirma admits she started a rumor in high society. She let it slip that everyone needs to show their sincerity towards the Empress ahead of time. Though, according to Nirma, not everyone's going to get a chance to meet the ruler at the start of next month. Once Angelica gets the hang of the palace routines, she'll be ready to debut. Then she'll be running the whole imperial family's business, and the maids ready to help her however she can. She barely finished dealing with the Solstice Day stuff, and now she's got to handle even more new crap. With all this crazy stuff going on, she has no freaking idea how or when she'll ever get to that escape plan. The shindig's in 15 days, and Angelica's been training with Duchess Nirma the whole time. The days just flew by. The girl's been cramming the names of all the aristocrats in the capital, their family ties, and the dirt on their businesses. Catching her studying, Ranierro snatches the book from Angelica, dryly commenting on her fascinating reading material. Plopping down on the bed, he declares the Empress is being forced to do pointless crap, tossing the book aside. The Emperor explains that, in her position, all she needs to do is lift her chin and speak with a haughty smirk. She doesn't have to know or want to know the names of those addressing her, but she'll deign to listen to them. Ranierro suggests Angelica just dominate, since she's the Emperor's wife, after all. He doesn't see why she can't just use his method and start acting like him. Ranierro advises Angelica to start by learning to keep a straight face, if she can't take his advice. A week later, on the day of the ball, Saizen tells Nirma they need to postpone the event. Her Majesty's cycle is irregular, and she's in serious pain, especially on the first day. The ladies-in-waiting start arguing about whether to go ahead with the event, but Angelica cuts them off. She decides against postponing the ball and asks for some painkillers. Gritting her teeth through the excruciating pain, the Empress gets ready to face the aristocrats. Appearing before her waiting guests, she thanks them for coming and hopes they'll be proud of this opportunity and always consider what they can do for the Empire. Tonight's ball features noble women and ladies, handpicked by Duchess Nirma, a woman with huge ambitions. Suddenly, Angelica realizes with horror that she's completely lost track of everyone's names and family trees. She wonders what Ranierro would do in this situation and remembers his advice. The guests freeze, hearing the Empress declare that she has absolutely no idea who they are or what they do. Angelica, picking out some chick from the crowd, snottily tells her to stand up and try to give her life story quick and dirty. The Empress feels for Duchess Nirma, but she can't trash her image by showing weakness. One by one, the guests start telling her about themselves, and she flashes a smile saying how thrilled she is to meet them. You can tell Nirma's pissed that this social thing isn't going the way she planned. Angelica asks her why the lady-in-waiting is giving her the stink eye, instead of worrying about the Empress's health. The Duchess apologizes, claiming she didn't mean anything by it. Nirma's a real sharp cookie, so the Empress needs to set some boundaries so she doesn't get too chummy. Suddenly, the guests all greet the Emperor as he walks in, totally catching Angelica off guard. Turning to the crowd and scooping up the girl in his arms, he announces he's gonna swipe her from this party. Ranierro figures his wife would rather hang with him than be bored stiff with these people. The way he acted was a total slap in the face to the confused guests and the ladies-in-waiting who had to pick up the pieces. It's kinda shocking and weird, especially since it's the first time Angelica's actually happy to see her husband. He runs into Sylvia and tells her the Empress isn't feeling well, turning down her offer to walk her to her room, saying he'll take her himself. Angelica feels like the Emperor's getting softer on her every day. Sylvia leaves to grab some painkillers, and Ranierro pulls a chair up to the bed and sits down next to her. He figures Angelica must think pretty highly of herself, showing up in front of everyone looking like that. She apologizes, and Ranierro says she got lucky, 'cause it was a room full of idiots. Angelica jumps up, remembering it's time for the state affairs meeting. Turns out, Ranierro skipped it, figuring it wasn't worth a long discussion. She asks what today's topic was, and finds out the meeting was about the Tunya Temple. A real backwater, no influence whatsoever, and not even Actilos gives a damn about its mountain range. The novel said Tunya was always begging for the two powers, Actilos and Sumbinia, to chill out and get along. Ranierro says it's the season for demon beasts to hatch from their eggs in that area, and it's time to wipe them out. The Emperor thinks it's messed up that they're asking for mercy, while callously destroying things. Angelica's hoping Ranierro goes on this campaign. He loves the gore, but he's on the fence about it. The Emperor's offering to show mercy if the girl will personally come grovel at his feet. Angelica's wondering what'll happen if messengers are sent from the temple, and Serafina's one of them. She's trying to shake the thought, 'cause if things go like the original story, the goddess won't show, and she and Ranierro won't meet till winter. But what if Serafina's arrival got bumped up, just like how she and Ranierro are tighter than they were supposed to be? Even after all this time, that social event never happened, 'cause the Empress is totally focused on the Temple of Tunya. Even though Angelica knows Serafina isn't coming, she can't stop worrying and keeps digging up info about the temple. Because if those two meet sooner, and the novel's plot gets fast-forwarded, she'll kick the bucket before winter even hits. Suddenly, Angelica stumbles on some intel about Saint Tunya, the most prized possession of that religious order. Apparently, this saint never leaves the mountain range where the temple's located and has zero contact with the outside world. But that's all Angelica could find, even though she had a vague idea that this Tunya chick was influential to some extent. Still, there are way more stories about demon beasts in the books. Turns out, the mountain folk of Tunya hunt and eat those beasts when they're seriously low on grub. When the beast's breeding season kicks off, the grown animals, desperate for food, start raiding human settlements. If Ranierro goes off to conquer those beasts, he'll run into Serafina while passing through the mountain range. So, Angelica decides she needs to tag along with the Emperor on this extermination mission. And if it turns out that's when Ranierro meets the goddess, she's gonna bolt right out of there. The day the temple delegation arrives is here, and Angelica is freaking out. Ranierro bumps into her in the hallway and asks why the Empress skipped breakfast. She's scared she'll get indigestion from the nerves, so she admits she's feeling like crap. Ranierro's response? He tells her to just skip meeting with the envoys. In a rush, Angelica grabs the Emperor's sleeve, and after apologizing, begs him to let her meet them. Ranierro agrees, and they head to the hall where the meeting with the delegation is set to take place. Angelica's shocked that the Archbishop himself came all the way from Tonya for the audience. Besides him, standing before the royal couple is the temple's holy knight, Eden, Serafina's first love. The Order of the Holy Knights of the Ridge recruits the strongest warriors who fight against demonic beasts. Okay, so even though Eden's not a huge character, he's a total rising star, shooting to the top thanks to his natural-born martial arts skills. In the original story, Ranierro straight up murdered him because of Serafina constantly pining after him. The Emperor wants to know if these beggars brought him a worthy tribute for his help. Before the bishop can even answer, Ranierro cuts him off and says he'll be merciful and reject their offering. Instead, he orders them to get on their knees and beg him to save them. If these messengers don't obey the emperor right now, they'll have to go back, and the temple's power alone won't cut it. The bishop's still hesitant, but Eden steps forward and kneels before Ranierro, and the others follow suit. The emperor starts cackling, and Angelica's thinking what a total scumbag he is. After the meeting ends, the girl finds it weird that Eden actually kneeled. After all, in the original, he's described as a righteous knight with a rebellious streak who doesn't bow down to stuff he thinks is wrong. Angelica overhears some maids gushing about Eden's training. They were more impressed with him than even the emperor. Since the temple envoys are sticking around Actilos for 9 days, the empress figures she should give the guests some proper attention. On her way, she bumps into Ranierro, who's bored with chatting with the bishop and just wants to hug her. Angelica tells him she's heading to make arrangements for the upcoming dinner. But the emperor's already taken care of everything, so there's no need for her to bother. She can just head back to the palace. Ranierro walks with Angelica, wondering why she's been so interested in the temple lately. She's ditched studying high society, which she was so into, and now she's digging up info on Tunia in the library. She even said she wanted to meet with the delegation, even though she wasn't feeling well. I mean, the Empress's homeland, the kingdom of Anro, and the Temple Ridge are far apart. They have no reason to trade. Angelica asks Ranierro who he's planning to seat at the dinner table, and he asks her how she was going to arrange it. So, in her opinion, the archbishop, the knight commander, and those 2 old priests should be seated by rank. But the emperor thinks seating guests like that is just plain boring. Truth is, Angelica doesn't really get who's important besides them, since she's never seen any of these people before. 2 months ago, a response like that would have bored Ranierro to tears. But now he figures she wants to sit across from that knight during dinner. He sits on the bed and calls Angelica over, pleased she's so compliant. But he kinda wishes she'd be the one to cuddle up to him first. After that day, the Empress ordered Season to keep tabs on Eden, and now the lady-in-waiting is reporting back what she's found. Turns out, Eden's been grabbing a book from the library, hiding it under his clothes, and sneaking off to someplace where nobody is around. Deciding to check things out herself, Angelica asks Season to arrange it so she doesn't have to be at the training session. On the appointed day, the Empress sends Nirma to watch the training with everyone else. The Duchess refuses, saying her mistress isn't feeling well, and she can't leave her alone. Angelica's laying it on thick, telling her Season's company is enough, and basically orders her to go have some fun. She tells the maids to go and report back on who wins, and Nirma finally caves. The Empress asks Season if anyone's in the library right now, and, getting an answer, calms her worried lady-in-waiting. She heads towards the library and peeks out from behind the bushes, watching the path Eden takes if he goes for another book. Angelica called it, because before long, the knight showed up and walked right past her, completely oblivious. Leaping out of hiding, she stops Eden, telling him he won't find whatever he's looking for, no matter what it is. He explains he's not looking for anything special, just browsing, 'cause he really digs books. Angelica presses him for his name, but he insists he only goes by Eden. The girl, worried she messed up, says if he doesn't answer, she's just gonna bail. Staring her down, the guy suddenly admits his real name is Chester. Angelica, figuring out she's right, asks him about the book they're both clearly trapped in. Turns out, they both got dumped into this novel on the exact same day, May 18th. The girl, who thought she was the only one this happened to, suddenly bursts into tears and admits she ordered a maid to tail him. The guy's stoked to meet her, 'cause he never imagined anyone else was in the same boat as him. Now it clicks for him how Angelica figured all this out. His actions are way different from the novel she read. Since they're short on time, the girl cuts to the chase and asks Eden about the book he was reading in the library. He says it's a book about forbidden magic, 'cause he figures that's why he got teleported to this world. Angelica's plowed through tons of novels in this genre, where dimension hopping is the whole gimmick. So, she never even considered it from that angle, and didn't bother digging into why or how she ended up here. Judging by what she's saying, Eden figures the Emperor isn't one of them who got transferred. If that were true, she'd be stoked, 'cause Ranierro's just as psycho as in the original, and every day's like walking a tightrope. Eden can't figure out why both he and Angelica are here, and they're both just side characters who die in the original story. The dude's planning to ditch the magic and head back home, back to where he used to live. But Angelica knows most isekai protagonists never actually make it back to their original world. Ranierro's bored watching the friendly sparring session, occasionally glancing at Angelica's empty throne. Fed up, he gets up and heads to the Empress's palace, where a flustered Cézanne greets him. Bursting into Angelica's room, Ranierro walks up to the bed, yanks off the covers, and sees she's not there. With a nasty glint in his eye, he tells the maid, who was about to stick up for her mistress, to shut her trap. Ranierro noticed one knight was missing from training, and Angelica conveniently skipped out too, claiming illness. The girl asks Chester if he's seen Serafina, seeing as he lives at the Temple of Tunaya. The dude admits he barely knows her, though, 'cause he's been dodging her like the plague. Angelica's thrown by this. Their memories get passed down, so Eden should know Serafina, right? Chester confesses the real deal is, the dude's feelings are so intense, he's getting hit hard by 'em. But even with just a messed up image, he figures Eden actually hates Serafina. Angelica's floored. She always thought the knight and goddess had a thing for each other. Chester explains Eden always put rules and morals first. He thought it was straight up wrong for a saint to crush on a holy knight. So, he's planning a mission to wipe out some demon beasts, wants to check out the great library in the abandoned temple. Normal channels are dry, so he's upping the ante, even though it's right on the border between beasts and humans. Angelica promises she'll dig up what she can in the Imperial Library on her end. She'll find him in Tunya if she turns up anything. He's surprised she's heading out on a suppression mission too. To avoid trouble, they decide to cut the chat short, since Angelica better get back before the friendly sparring ends. Glad she made it back alive and in one piece, the girl walks into the palace. But then she freezes, because Ranierro's waiting for her in the middle of the room, sitting in a chair. The Emperor, with a nasty smirk, asks why she took a stroll if she was feeling sick. Angelica explains that she went out for some air, 'cause she had a killer headache. Noticing her hands are shaking, and Ranierro didn't miss it. She says she's scared of his fierce glare. The Emperor wants to know if she met with that knight, and Angelica, denying it, asks if he actually suspects her of something. Ranierro's surprised. Is he getting soft, freaking out that those two specifically decided to skip training today? Even if his little wife fancies that guy, he's got no reason to be pissed, 'cause the Emperor can't be jealous of an aunt like her. Angelica starts crying, admitting she can't lie to the Emperor. Ranierro drops to one knee, pulling the girl into a hug, totally catching her off guard. But she looks so fragile, and knowing showing anger will just scare her again. The Emperor says he's not mad. That was the first time Ranierro had managed to completely fool Angelica. In a relationship where both sides barely know each other, a subtle shift starts to happen. Once the Emperor was gone, Angelica finally let her emotions out. She'd been terrified, thinking it was all over. She can't believe he got so pissed just 'cause she was gone. She's nothing but a worthless prize to him. There must be another reason, so for now, she decides to stick close to Ranierro for a while. The Emperor's chatting with knights, his wife by his side, and Eden and Angelica pretend they're strangers. The girl's itching to end this conversation. She asks Ranierro to leave, and he suddenly embraces her gently. When the Emperor asks how everyone slept, a knight replies that they all had a comfortable, peaceful night. Stroking Angelica's hair, Ranierro wonders aloud if the knights are enjoying the food. Eden's thrown for a loop seeing the Emperor's affection, especially after she told him he was just as crazy as in the original story. Angelica's also surprised and weirded out by Ranierro, who suddenly decides to kiss the Empress right in front of everyone. While kissing her, he's watching Eden from under his brow, and Eden's seriously uncomfortable with his stare. She asks him to stop, saying the knights need to leave, and Ranierro agrees, letting everyone know she's clearly dying to be alone with him. Now, Angelica's sure the Emperor suspects something, because he was definitely giving Eden the stink eye. Through Cézanne, she sends a letter to the knight, asking what they should do, since the Emperor might be on to their conversation. Getting an answer from Chester saying he doesn't think so, Angelica gets pissed, because the guy's not exactly Mensa material. Watching her mistress, Cézanne thinks about how much she's changed since she lived in the kingdom of Onro. When the decision was made to send her to the Actilos Empire for marriage, Cézanne felt sorry for the princess, who cried non-stop. The maid chose to live abroad, foregoing marriage, but Angelica, now Empress, feels like a different person. Cézanne decides to voice her concerns to her mistress, but before she can even get a word out, Angelica cuts her off. She realizes that her lady-in-waiting thinks she's got the hots for that night from the Tunya temple. She feels bad for making Sazine doubt her, but she assures her that things aren't what they seem. With tears in her eyes, the girl asks why Angelica isn't telling her anything, since that's never happened before. Seeing her tears, the Empress reveals she has no feelings for the knight, but her interest lies with the saint from the Tunya temple. Still, Sazine doesn't get why Angelica chose to ask Eden about the saint, since she could have just talked to the archbishop. The Empress replies that she did it because she thinks Eden doesn't have any friends at all. Plus, she figured someone who doesn't feel like they belong in the temple would spill more than the archbishop would. Hearing Angelica's explanation, Sazine is relieved and, wiping her tears, apologizes for misunderstanding her in the first place. The Empress claims she has absolutely no intention of betraying her husband, and Ranierro, standing outside the door, hears every word. He smirks, knowing Angelique is super close to her handmaiden, so he's sure what she just said is the truth. Sazine's happy to see the harmony between the couple. It wasn't long ago the mistress was crying, refusing to marry, and now she's adapted so well and become a respected empress. Angelique admits it's tough, but she thinks His Majesty treats her pretty well. Hearing this, Ranierro smiles again, and Sazine expresses her hope that the empress will grow to love this country even more over time. Angelique hopes so too, unless, of course, she dies on the winter hunt. The emperor finds it funny that the girl is worried about the winter hunt, because he completely forgot about it. Remembering Angelique is interested in the saint from the temple, he thinks it would be good to meet her when he goes on his expedition. That evening, lying on the empress's lap, Ranierro notices her good mood. The girl points out that it's because of the emperor's good nature, which makes her happy. They're both cracking up at Angelica's awkwardness, because she's just not getting the joke. Ranierro puts her hand on his head, and she instinctively starts stroking his hair. The emperor asks Angelica what else she likes, and she's like, "Since when do you care what I like?" The empress decides to ask Ranierro if she can tag along on his demon beast extermination expedition. She knows it's a weird request, since she's usually such a scaredy cat, and now she wants to jump into the thick of it. But then Ranierro surprises her, smiling and agreeing, saying if she wants to follow him, fine. Angelica's stunned. She's never seen that look on the emperor's face before. He's always portrayed as a devil, and she's always thought he had a demonic vibe. But right now, his face is so innocent and radiant that she reaches out and gently touches his cheek. Angelica knows she can't let her guard down. This guy could flip out any second, but he pulls her into a tight hug. She knows he's unstable, and tomorrow he'll be the Ranierro she knows, but right now, she hugs him back. But tomorrow came, and against Angelica's expectations, the emperor didn't revert to his old self. The archbishop thanks His Majesty for the reception, during which the delegation members rested comfortably. After seeing the envoys off, the emperor smiles again and embraces Angelica. The girl's stunned. How did the fearsome Ranierro Actilos suddenly start acting like a romance novel hero? Objectively speaking, it's good that he's become friendly, but Angelica can't take it seriously. Back in the spring, when they got married, he hated even being touched. And now, he's constantly asking what she likes. Lying in bed, she wonders if she can escape before Ranierro loses interest in her. Meanwhile, sipping wine, the emperor wonders why she doesn't just tell him what she likes. A few days ago, after overhearing Angelica's conversation with a maid, he developed one burning desire. He could count the times he'd seen her smile on one hand, and he was dying to see her really light up. He realized he wanted to own this woman, and he wanted her to fall in love with him. Angelica's in the library, and seeing the leaves falling outside, she remembers she's heading out on the expedition in a week. She's plowed through almost every book on magic, but found squat about people who came from another world. Guess Eden was right. There's nothing for it but to check out the sanctuary's big, abandoned archive. Ranierro walks into the library, sits next to Angelica, and asks if there's anything specific she's hoping to find on the expedition. When she says she's not looking for anything special, the emperor asks about the saint who never leaves the Tunya temple. She flinches. She doesn't get why Ranierro's so interested. Does he want to see Serafina? The emperor's taken aback by her reaction. He thought Angelica would be happy he was talking about something she cared about. Smiling, he asks, what's the big deal if he does want to see the saint? But she suddenly tries to talk him out of it. He's all, why's everyone trying to talk me out of this? And Angelica's like, Serafina's crazy hot, and that could be a problem for her. He's like, "Who do you think you are, trying to own me?" And she freaks, trying to backpedal, saying he totally misunderstood. But then Ranierro just smiles. He's actually digging Angelica being all possessive of him. 10 days later, the Demon Beast Extermination Expedition kicks off. Ranierro's riding, but even though Angelica can ride, he stuck her in a carriage. The Empress only brought Saizen and Sylvia as attendants. Less staff means a cleaner getaway if things go south. People are saying Angelica snagged Sylvia as a trophy, so while Angelica's stock is rising, Sylvia's is tanking hard. Even if the Empress acts up, the lady-in-waiting can't tell anyone, 'cause nobody's gonna listen to some weak girl's words. After 3 straight days of travel, the carriage doors swing open, and Ranierro orders Angelica to get out. The camp's not even set up yet, so she's clueless why he called her out here. He grabs her hand, asks if she likes beautiful things, and when she says yes, he leads her off somewhere. Deep in the woods, Ranierro's all, "Seriously? You tiny little things actually think shiny stuff is beautiful?" Angelica freezes, blown away by the unbelievable beauty. The ground's lit by the stars, covered in glowing flowers. She can't believe the Emperor found such an amazing place, and he asks her to smile if she likes it. It's like a dream. She walks up to Ranierro, goes up on her tiptoes, and gives him a hug. He kisses her gently and whispers her name a few times, all soft and tender. Ranierro pulls Angelica down to the ground, and she realizes, if he brought her here to make her smile, then he actually cares. Finally reaching Tunia, the Emperor's greeted by a bishop, who he orders to get beds ready for everyone. Ranierro will take care of food and clothes for his people, but he wants them to find a place for him and his wife to stay. Riding along the Tunia Temple mountain range, the nearby villages look totally deserted to Angelica. You'd think people would be lining the streets to see this huge convoy roll in, but nobody's even bothering to look. The Empress is realizing, for the first time, that people see Actilos as something to be scared of. Ranierro's got a meeting scheduled with the commander of the Holy Knights, and he's asking Angelica if she wants to join. She turns him down, and the Emperor, looking bummed, pats her on the head as he leaves. Ranierro's definitely changed, and Angelica's just gonna have to accept that the guy's really into her. But who knows? Maybe when he meets Serafina, everything will change, so she's gotta watch her back. Angelica told Saizen to grab a stack of cash, but she doesn't want to bail just yet. Just then, Eden creeps up behind her, clamps a hand over her mouth, and points a finger, telling her not to scream. He lets go, apologizing for scaring her, and Angelica asks him where Serafina is and if she can meet with her. But Eden's already made sure that's impossible, because if the original story kicks off too early, he's gonna have problems too. He suggested the Archbishop send Serafina on a pilgrimage, figuring a saint's visit could help those worried about the extermination. Angelica, stoked by his quick thinking, then told him about striking out finding the books she needed. I mean, this world's existence isn't in any book, and there aren't even stories about souls hopping into other bodies. Even though Eden thinks hitting up that abandoned library is all they can do, Angelica decides to keep her doubts to herself. She says she's going with the Emperor on the extermination trip, since His Majesty wants her there. Angelica admits to Eden she thinks Ranierro's got a thing for her, but the guy's not surprised. He already knew. But it's bugging her, because this whole thing is totally off script from the original story. Eden asks if she'd stay, even if Ranierro's still not into her after meeting Serafina. Angelica's silent, and just as she's about to say something, Eden cuts her off, figuring that silence is answer enough. She's embarrassed to be acting like this in front of him, all worked up about Ranierro being into her. Grabbing her hand, Eden says he'd understand if she wanted to stay, since things here might be better for her than back where she's from. Angelica promises the guy she'll help him get back, even if she decides to stick around. Eden smiles, telling her they're better off parting ways and never seeing each other again. Sitting at dinner, Angelica wonders if Ranierro, after all this, will still care for her, or if he'll be instantly smitten with Serafina. She's not sure if she can even be certain that she won't be disappointed in him, even if they overcome all the hurdles. Seeing the narrow bed made up just for her, Angelica can't help but think she's already regretting this. Could she really want to stay here? Because if she's being honest with herself, she wasn't exactly living the dream back there. She was so broke, cheap books were her only escape, and she didn't even have any friends. Meanwhile, Angelica was a princess, educated and raised with love, Plus, she has a loyal friend in Suzen. But since there's no guarantee Ranierro will always love her, from a logical standpoint, her best bet is to leave. The Emperor shows up at the door with food for Angelica, 'cause she missed dinner. He sits next to her, starts feeding her, and she notices Ranierro brought all her favorite stuff. Angelica wishes him luck tomorrow, but she's thinking she can't fully let him in until she's not so scared of him. When she's done eating, Ranierro notices how narrow the bed is, barely big enough for one person. He scoots closer to Angelica and starts kissing her, but feeling like her heart's gonna burst, she suddenly pushes him away. Ranierro looks at her, surprised, and the expression on his face floors her. She couldn't believe she rejected the touch of a guy who probably never heard no in his entire life. Knowing she needs to fix this quick before he gets pissed, Angelica pretends she was just kidding around. She apologizes for screwing up and begs him not to be mad, but Ranierro calmly tells her he's not angry. He gently pulls her close and tells her not to be afraid and not to cry. Her heart's pounding. She can't believe Ranierro isn't even mad. He settles her onto his lap, telling her to relax and get some sleep since the trip was rough. A girl in a veil walks up to Angelica and offers her a tray. When she opens it, the Empress sees a severed head and, thinking it's Jaxiu's, throws the tray away in horror. The head rolls. It's Eden, and he asks Angelica if she's staying here. She recoils and realizes the veiled girl is Serafina, staring at her silently and coldly. She runs from her, straight into Ranierro's arms, who was right there, and he calls her his winter prize. Serafina seems to be trying to say something to Angelica, but she can't make out the words. She hears someone calling her name and, opening her eyes, sees the Emperor looking worried, telling her to wake up. Angelica realizes she had a nightmare, and it feels weird that in the dream, she almost wanted to walk towards death. She looked in the mirror this morning and finally understood why Ranierro grabbed her wrist so hard. If he hadn't stopped her, that mark on her neck would have been way worse. Today's the day they head to the shrine, so Angelica decides to get ready and try to forget that nightmare. She goes out to the courtyard and chats with the bishop when Ranierro comes up, asking if she's up to going with them. Turns out, the trip's gonna take the squad 2 weeks. Even though the shrine's close, they gotta wipe out the beasts along the way. But think about it. If Angelica stays here, she'll have tons of time to explore the cathedral without Ranierro breathing down her neck. So, she explains that she'd just slow them down, and tells them she's decided to stay behind. Taking Ranierro's hands, she says she wants to get everything done here ASAP, so they can go back home to the palace together. He turns away from her, shaking off her hands, and promises to be back as soon as he can. Angelica then asks the archbishop for permission to check out the shrine, the one she's read so much about, once it's been cleared. The knights are hitting the road, and Eden notices the Emperor's got a real thundercloud brewing on his face. He's surprised Ranierro's actually bothered that the Empress didn't tag along on this monster hunt. Eden can't believe Angelica's got the Emperor so whipped, she can just straight up defy him. He's like a totally different dude now, nothing like the guy they talked about in the book. Right then, these demonic beasts jump the knights, and they watch Ranierro wipe out the whole pack in a heartbeat. One of the beasts is still kicking, but the Emperor draws his sword again and takes it out with one swing. The further Angelica pushes away, the more something's waking up inside Ranierro. The squad reaches the shrine and finds it surrounded by demonic beast eggs. With a wicked grin, Ranierro asks the knights if they've ever seen demonic beasts hatch before. He orders them to kill the hatchlings, capture the mothers alive, and leave the eggs alone. Eden thinks the Emperor's gone nuts. Like in this hellhole bloodbath, he's not just slaughtering beasts, he's having a blast stealing their eggs. When the knight asks why they don't just smash the eggs right now, Ranierro says that's no fun. One of the soldiers tells the Emperor that a baby one hatched, but he didn't kill it. The little guy didn't attack, probably thinking the knight was his mom, which Ranierro finds hilarious. He orders the eggs collected and a watch posted, and Adan's wondering who the real monster is here. Eden, waiting for his watch, checks out the eggs and figures they won't hatch anytime soon, so he decides to scout around. He steps into the library, but he's bummed, 'cause it's way smaller than he thought. But then, in the wall, Eden spots a small, slightly open stone door, leading to another, super narrow passage. He realizes he can't squeeze through the passage, and that's when he notices something's inscribed on the door handle. The inscription says, "Open with the sword of Tunia when the blood of Actila is ready." This has got to be about the blood of Ranierro Actilos, Actilos' godson. But Eden's clueless about this Tunya sword thing, 'cause no relic like that exists. He decides to dig around in the archives for documents about it. And that's when someone calls out to him from behind. The knight asks Eden what he's staring at on the blank wall. 'Cause there's nothing there, and they head out. The day after the punitive squad left, news arrived that they'd reclaimed the sanctuary faster than expected. Angelica hit the infirmary, 'cause she heard the wounded knights were the first ones back. Seeing the gnarly wounds on their bodies, the Empress figured the operation to wipe out the beasts was brutal. The knight pointed out the battle wasn't tough, but he was thrown off by Ranierro's tactics. The Emperor snatched the beasts' eggs, and after they hatched, the babies thought the knights were their parents. Then Ranierro ordered the knights to feed the hungry babies their own mothers. Sylvia drops the medicine flasks when she hears that, trembling as she kneels to pick them up. Angelica tells Saizen to watch the infirmary, then heads out to bring the knights water, asking Sylvia to come along. The Empress is worried about the maid, but doesn't know how to tell her to rest. For an Actilos native, it'd be humiliating. Suddenly, the girl asks Angelica why she cares so much about her, the daughter of traitors, when she doesn't deserve it. Sylvia admits that hearing about the beasts reminded her of when she killed her own mother while hunting, just to survive. Angelica touches the girl's shoulder, telling her not to talk about it, and Sylvia, tears in her eyes, leans on the Empress's shoulder. The heroine smiles, because Sylvia showing weakness in front of her means she completely trusts her mistress. The next day, Angelica visits the reclaimed sanctuary with the Archbishop. The Empress asks if she can look through any of the books stored there, and the bishop gives her permission. To her horror, she realizes Chester was wrong. All the forbidden books have already been moved, leaving only those safe for outsiders. After that, Angelica started hitting up that abandoned shrine every single day. Reading those books was a real pain. I mean, there weren't many to begin with, and most of them were beat to hell with faded text. The Empress is standing by the shelves, and all of a sudden, a book just falls off the shelf right next to her. Like, by itself. Angelica picks it up, and she's frozen in shock. It's the very novel she got sucked into. Flipping through it, she notices the story seems different from what she remembered reading. According to the novel, the god of war's godson robbed the Shrine of Mercy, and Actilos' knights ran into a storm and had to bail. Serafina hears God's voice saying an important guest is coming soon, and she waits for them. Angelica reads up to the part where the Empress gets killed, and she starts feeling sick. Maybe it's because she's reading the original after months with Ranierro, but something about the story just feels off. Then, Angelica spots a note from the author, like it was written specifically for her. According to the author, if the world he created had unchangeable rules, Actilos' godson wouldn't have a single choice but to become obsessed with Saint Tunya. Even if the characters around them change and the relationships get all messed up, Ranierro's gotta meet Serafina and fall for her, no matter what. Angelica's thinking maybe she's better off ditching the Emperor when bam! Someone taps her shoulder, making her jump. She turns around and sees Ranierro, who's back way earlier than he was supposed to be. He asks what book she's reading, and when she says it's the canonical commandments, he's like, "Hold up, I swear I heard you cursing under your breath when I walked in." Ranierro starts flipping through the book, and Angelica totally freaks out, not knowing how to explain any of this. Suddenly, he turns back to her and asks if she's messing with him, calling this a commandment, 'cause all he sees is a blank page. Handing the book back to Angelica, who's totally lost, and heading out of the shrine, Ranierro asks if she remembers what she said 10 days ago. He takes her hand, and she can't believe the Emperor came back early because of what she said about going home. Sitting in the room on Ranierro's lap, Angelica asks how the extermination went. The Emperor's telling her how he fed baby animals to their own mothers, and he's bummed she missed the show. Angelica can't sleep that night. Escaping just got a whole lot harder now that she knows Ranierro's got a thing for her. She can't just trick him anymore, and if she suddenly pulls away, he's gonna get suspicious for sure. Until he ships off for that winter expedition, she's gotta play the loving girlfriend so he doesn't even think she'd ditch her beloved. Morning rolls around, and wouldn't you know it, they're already packing up to head back. Angelica's freaking out, because now she won't have time to talk to Chester about the book. The Empress is out of options. She's gotta pawn this job off on Saizen. Picking the right moment, when Ranierro's sure to overhear, she calls over her lady-in-waiting and asks her to return that book she accidentally took from the sanctuary. After giving her instructions, the Emperor hugs Angelica, stoked that they'll be back home soon. Saizen meets up with Eden and asks him to return the book the Empress took from the sanctuary. The lady-in-waiting also hands over the stash of cash they brought and says the escape's set for December with Eden. There's a note from Angelica in the book about a hidden message Ranierro missed, but the knight can't see anything either. Eden asks her to tell the Empress the pages are blank, and then the maid hits him with a question about his thing with Angelica. The girl doesn't get why the Empress is planning to bail with him in December, if they're on the up and up. Eden's just as thrown that Angelica's decided to bolt after all, 'cause he thought she was planning to stay in Actilos. Seeing he's getting nowhere with Saizen, he explains the Empress's decision by saying they got a prophecy that the Emperor's gonna off 'em both. The lady-in-waiting finally figures out why her mistress was sending her to Eden so often. Saizen heads back to Angelica to fill her in on her chat with the knight. Now that she knows about the prophecy, the maid understands the Empress's choice and is totally on board. Angelica learns that Eden also saw blank pages in the book, just like Ranierro. So, Saizen's also talking about a secret door in the sanctuary, one that a knight found while checking out the library. The lady-in-waiting heads off to check the Empress's stuff, and Angelica's wondering how Eden can't see the book entries, but she missed the door. Either way, no time to overthink. She and Ranierro are heading back to Actilos. Even though Actilos was living a pretty peaceful life, after coming back from the beast extermination, Angelica was getting hit with nightmares all the time. Ranierro would wake her up every time, asking what she was dreaming, but she was obviously keeping it a secret. The Emperor knew she was lying, but for some reason, he didn't push it, just hugged her and calmed her down. Angelica noticed that Ranierro's been getting soft lately, especially if she shows him even a little affection. She asks him if she can check out the house they're prepping for Saizen tomorrow, and he says she can. Just be back before sundown. Saizen gets back home, where the servants greet her, worried about how quiet she's been lately. The maid asks the butler how he manages to stay so calm when the mistress comes home in a mood. The dude just says everyone else needs to chill and heads back to his room. Watching Daniel go, the maid thinks about how unique he is. He's the only staff member with his own room, speaks so fancy, acts all noble. She even wonders if he's some broke aristocrat hiding out. But nobody knows the truth. He used to be a top-tier holy knight from the Tunya Temple, and to keep him close, Her Majesty's most trusted confidant went independent. All the mansion staff are people with no ties to the imperial palace. It's all a smokescreen to avoid suspicion. No one would ever guess that the Empress, a maid, and an exiled holy knight are secretly plotting an escape. When Eden told Angelica, through Saizen, that he was coming to Actilos, she was racking her brain trying to figure out how. At the temple, the knight confessed his sin, his love for the saint, and basically got himself exiled. Angelica realizes just how badly Chester wants to go back to their original world. He doesn't give a damn about fame or status here. Lately, the Empress's mental state has been noticeably weakening because of this planned escape. But Ranierro, knowing she's plagued by nightmares, doesn't ask Angelica for explanations, no matter what she does now. He didn't even find her independence in Saizen suspicious, so she figures he won't suspect a thing. Arriving at her lady-in-waiting's home, Angelica sits on the living room couch while the girl closes the curtains. Eden enters the room with a tray, greeting the Empress, who he hasn't seen in ages. To his comment about how exhausted Angelica looks, she replies that Ranierro's expedition is coming up fast. The guy admits he didn't say everything last time about the door he found. Eden wanted to tell her everything in person after figuring it all out himself. But first, he wants to talk about something else. Ranierro is being way too protective of Angelica, and the guy thinks the Emperor might want to take her with him on the winter expedition. But the Empress doesn't think so, because Ranierro knows she doesn't feel great after returning from monster exterminations. Before the Emperor heads off on this expedition, she's going to tell him she needs to go for treatment, and he won't stop her. Once Ranierro's out of the palace, the escape kicks off. But Angelica hasn't decided where they're going yet. All the countries bordering Actilos have beefed up border security, so crossing them is going to be a pain. Ranierro, distracted by Serafina, might not even look for Angelica, but the feudal lord she picked for her treatment could be a different story. If they find the Empress, they'll ship her right back to the imperial palace. That's why Eden thinks they need to go somewhere close to the border, with chill relations with Actilos. He suggests the Temple of Tunia for her treatment, and Angelica blows up. 'Cause Ranierro's gonna be there. Eden tells her to chill, because they gotta hit the temple anyway, seeing as the door's in the old sanctuary. Angelica gets that he's suggesting they head to the temple first, before the Emperor even gets there. Eden's betting the priests worshipping the god of mercy won't rat them out for hiding there. He's telling the Empress about the inscription carved into the handle of the shrine door. Eden spent ages wondering what sword it was talking about, and he's just figured it out. Something the girl clicks to right away, too. There's a good chance the sword of Tunia is Seraphina, since in the original story, her sword pierced Ranierro, so they need to reach the saint before the Emperor, so that after seeing Actila's blood, taking her to the vault, and opening the door, they can find out what's behind it. Angelica's bummed thinking about this Actila blood thing, figuring Ranierro's gotta die no matter what. Eden's not sure if he has to die, but either way, blood's gonna spill. Noticing Angelica's worry, he asks if it's bothering her. Ranierro, even though he's called Actila's godson, is actually considered the same being as God himself. 'Cause unlike the god of Tunia, blood's the only way to communicate with the god of Actila. No temples, no holy scripture. Angelica's scared her saying no will be seen as a lie, but she still says that her life is the most important thing to her. Eden, who's thinking how bad the Empress is at lying, still thinks she's got feelings for Ranierro. The only way she could keep from getting caught was to pretend like she was putting on an act on purpose. She tells Eden not to worry about it, because she knows her life is what matters most. He figures time will tell if it's love out of necessity or just an excuse she's telling herself. Angelica decides to ask Eden if he came from a well-off family, or at least if he lived without any problems, because maybe his past life was like paradise, while she's having a really tough time in her current one. That's why she's asking Eden to keep that in mind, pointing out she's hesitant, because going back isn't as great for her as it is for him. Then, about a month from now, if things go according to plan, Ranierro's heading on an expedition to the kingdom of Sambinia. Spotting the Empress studying a map of the area, Sylvia tells her the journey there takes about 3 weeks. The lady-in-waiting finds it hard to believe Angelica's just looking at maps for no reason. The Emperor walks in, wondering what they were talking about. Angelica tells Ranierro she was studying the maps to get a feel for the situation. He seats her at the table, asking her to share her take on the region. In her opinion, winter's a pretty bad time for armed conflict. Angelica points to Sambinia, an area at the foot of the mountain, basically the only route connecting them to Actilos. If Actilos can use it as a stronghold, it's like handing our soldiers over to Sambinia on a silver platter. Angelica knows it'll be tough to station many troops in that remote, out-of-the-way place during winter, and Ranierro's impressed she knows so much. She points out common sense says war won't happen in winter, even if the borders are weaker than usual. But if we take the chance to break down the wall and flatten the mountain to make a wider road, Actilos can crush Sambinia's forces one by one. The people of Actilos are born strong and tough, so pushing in winter gives us a high chance of a major victory. Ranierro admits he's been waiting for years, tracking the weather and biding his time for the perfect moment. He's betting if this winter's anything like the last 10, this land becomes Actilos territory. Thing is, Ranierro never talked about this with Angelica, so he's wondering how she knows so much. She explains she figured it out by thinking like the Emperor, putting herself in his head. He shows Angelica the planned route, set to kick off at the start of December. When she sadly mentions he'll be busy soon, he asks if he shouldn't go then. She throws her arms around him, promising she'll be fine, and just asking him to come back quick. Ranierro confesses he'd love to take Angelica with him, but she reminds him she was sick after the last expedition. The Emperor's expedition route he showed today. That's gold. Saizen's gonna get that out of the palace and straight to Eden's room. The Emperor overhears the maids gossiping and learns from Angelica that Duchess Nirma is expecting a baby. Without even a congrats, Ranierro kicks everyone out of the Empress's room and just crashes on her bed. Hearing Angelica stoked about Nirma finally being pregnant, the Emperor wonders if she even wants kids. He points out that if she does end up popping one out, she'll need to crank out a bunch for the Actilos trials. Angelica asks if the kids she has are supposed to, kill each other until only one's left standing. Getting a yup for an answer, she figures that her kid could off Ranierro, just like he did the last Emperor. But the Emperor's sure nobody can kill him, 'cause Actilos weeds out the weak, even if it's a baby. Angelica wonders if she could get weeded out, but Ranierro says she's family, and only he decides her life or death. If anyone but him takes his wife's life, they'll pay the price for their insane boldness. Sylvia overhears the other maids gossiping, talking about how lovey-dovey the Emperor and Empress are. Since the Emperor's back with Angelica, nobody's gonna be looking for the lady-in-waiting on duty till sunrise. So Sylvia knows this is her shot, and she's gotta make her move right now. The head lady-in-waiting, acting all independent, and moving her residence outside the palace just feels shady. That's why Sylvia decided to come to Seizen's house to find out something. But when she got there, she realized she was too late. Standing in front of the house, she sees a light in the window, and then Eden suddenly walks up to it. Even though the new haircut might fool some people, Sylvia recognizes him as the knight from the Temple of Tunia. Pulling the curtain closed, Eden quickly knocks on Seizen's room to tell her that one of the Empress's ladies-in-waiting is outside. The guy realizes they've got a problem, because when they locked eyes, it was obvious Sylvia knew who he was. Eden and Seizen go to meet the girl, who apologizes to them for the late visit. Once inside the house, she admits that she suspected something was up and came here, trusting her gut. Since Angelica's been studying maps of the area instead of throwing fancy parties, Sylvia figured she's building a coalition. This chick wants us to spill the beans on our plans, but Eden's sticking to, we ain't scheming nothin'. He's playing it off, saying he's just here 'cause he got kicked out of the temple and lucked into a job. But Sylvia ain't buying a word of it. She wants the real story. She figures she'll lay her cards on the table first, says she ain't gonna get in the way of whatever the lady's plannin'. Sylvia straight up admits she hates the Emperor, 'cause in his eyes, everyone's just a plaything. What's a fun distraction for him is a scream of pain she's gotta carry for the rest of her damn life. So, if Angelica wants to stab the Emperor in the back, Sylvia's ready to throw herself into it, whatever the cost. She knows the only one who can take him down is Her Majesty, the Empress. When Eden points out Angelica's got the hots for Ranierro, she bursts out laughing, says there's no way she loves him. According to her, the Empress might be rattled and lean on him for strength, but her sweet talkin' is just a survival tactic. Eden's thinking, if that were the case, the Emperor would have seen right through her. He can spot a lie a mile away. Sylvia's convinced the Emperor's got a blind spot for Angelica, 'cause he's head over heels for her. Out of nowhere, Eden drops the bomb. He and the Empress are planning to ditch Actilos. She asks him, what happens then? And he just smiles and says, gotta off the Emperor. Snuggled in bed, telling Ranierro she loves him, Angelica asks if she can split for a bit while he's on that expedition. She's scared that when he's gone, she'll have nightmares and no one will wake her up, so she wants to go somewhere to recover. The Empress has even picked a place, Docino County, where Countess Anastasia will take care of her. Ranierro sees the Empress as a total sweetheart, and he wants to give her everything she asks for. Sitting in the meeting, the Emperor can't focus on the discussion. He's just replaying Angelica's love confession in his head. He announces the planned campaign is still on, no changes, and dismisses the meeting. Ranierro, remembering Nirma's pregnancy, asks the Duke about it, who's stunned the Emperor wants a personal chat. The Emperor asks the Duke if he's happy about it, if he loves his wife, and how he even knows it's love. Tough question. But since you don't get a one-on-one with the Emperor every day, the Duke decides to dodge anything that might upset him. He says he feels love when he sees his wife as someone truly special. Love makes you forgive the unforgivable. Be generous about things you might not like. From that, Ranierro figures the Empress sees him as exceptional and one of a kind. Angelica's practicing archery when the Emperor catches up with her. He hugs her, kisses her, and compliments how good she's gotten with a bow. He's worried if Angelica will be all right while he's gone, but she reassures him. Turns out, the Emperor was already planning to assign her an escort to make her trip easier. Angelica's only taking Sylvia, Seizen, and one porter, figuring she'll be more comfortable with familiar faces around. She knows Ranierro's definitely gonna tail her, but she thinks they'll be fine as long as they keep their distance. The days were getting colder, but Actilos' army was well equipped for a surprise attack on Sambinia. Before the Actilos army even marched out, Angelica was one step ahead, finishing her preparations to leave for treatment. She and Ranierro say their goodbyes, and after getting into the carriage, the girl heads off to the Docino County. After seeing her off, the Emperor's gonna hustle, 'cause he's decided to conquer Sambinia. The Countess is thrilled the Empress is here, even though Duchess Nirma told her not to act rashly. It's hard for her not to get excited. The Countess's husband's been cheating on her for ages, and her son took off to another district because he was sick of his parents' marital spats. If it weren't for the emerald mine she owns, her father-in-law would have kicked her out long ago, and having a guest like this gives her something to brag about. The Countess wants to tell everyone in the district that the Empress is visiting, but she's here to get some rest. This woman's trying to get closer to Angelica, but without making her feel weird. The Empress gets the best of everything, and the staff are trained to the max to avoid screw-ups. Angelica's happy with how she's being treated, and Anastasia's stoked to please her. She's wondering who this dude is that came with them, 'cause all she knows is Saizen hired him, and his name's Daniel. Judging by the fact he's tagging along on this trip, he must have earned a lot of trust pretty fast. The Countess and Daniel keep locking eyes, and when she catches him smiling, she gets flustered and blushes. Turns out, seducing the Countess, who's been living the lonely life ever since her husband cheated, was part of Angelica's plan. Mission accomplished. Later that night, Daniel's in the Countess's bedroom. She's totally charmed by his attention. Once she's asleep, he quietly opens her dresser drawer and finds the keys he's been after this whole time. The next morning, the Countess finds the keys are gone and realizes with a jolt, Daniel might have been the thief last night. She's about to run off and confront him, but the Empress steps out, wanting to talk to her about something. Anastasia tries to put it off, saying she has an urgent matter, but then Angelica holds out those keys. According to the Empress, she dropped them yesterday, taking off her coat, but she didn't say anything then, to avoid embarrassing her. The Countess doesn't remember carrying keys yesterday, but the Empress wouldn't steal them, so she thanks her. Angelica suggests they have tea together before lunch, and the Countess accepts the honor. There are a couple reasons why the Empress chose this county as her escape route. First, it's north of the capital, so she can get to the Temple of Tunia without crossing the mountain. Second, Anastasia may be rich, but her family standing is shaky, so she'll do whatever Angelica says to gain influence through her. Over tea, the Empress complains to the Countess that there are too many unfamiliar people in the mansion, making her dizzy. Trying to please her, the Countess tells her about a quiet villa nearby where Her Majesty could stay. Truth is, Saizen and Eden picked this villa on the edge of the estate as their escape point way before they even arrived. Even though staying at this villa was Angelica's plan all along, she feels kinda awkward watching the Countess try so hard to win her over. When the Countess offers to post guards around the house, the Empress turns her down, saying she's a crack shot with a bow herself. If the Countess agrees to let the Empress stay at the villa with just her escorts, she promises to grant her one wish. Angelica likes that the villa's secluded from the mansion, and the fence is so high, it's almost impossible to see over it. Now, all the Empress has to do is ask the Countess to respect her need for privacy and hand over the villa keys. Finally, it's just the four of them, and Angelica notices Sylvia seems super pumped. The Empress is seriously worried, because Eden included her escape plan without even running it by her first. Once they're sure everything's still on track, they sit down to relax, and Angelica's thinking about how tough it is for her to lie. Every day after the Empress leaves, Ranierro keeps showing up at her palace. The staff said he's been crashing there every night, and they're starting to sweat if he's even okay. Before bailing on this place tonight, Angelica's got a favor to ask Saizen. She needs him to snag her some writing gear so she can drop the Emperor a line. In it, she says she made it to the county just fine. She's not having nightmares here, and she'll be back on her feet soon. Angelica says once His Majesty's expedition wraps up, she wants to get back to training to prep for the upcoming hunt. Reading her letter, Ranierro's thinking after he conquers Sambinia, he'll swing by and pick up Angelica on the way back to the capital. Eden says 4 people together is going to draw too much heat, so they gotta split into 2 teams. He and the Empress will head north first, then Sylvia and Saizen will go south a week later. Packing her stuff, Angelica's freaking out that something's gonna go sideways and she'll get recognized and blown. Seeing her worry, Saizen chills her out, saying they'll definitely get to meet up at the temple soon. Angelica hugs her loyal assistant, never having confessed, even now, that she's not who she seems to be. The Empress mounts her horse, and Sylvia checks if she's absolutely sure she can handle everything. Angelica wishes the maids good luck, and she and Aiden set off. The closer they get to the checkpoint, the more nervous the Empress becomes. And finally, they arrive. Angelica feels nauseous from the stress, but Aiden isn't slowing down for anything. The guard stopping them demands to see their pass, and they hand him the token stolen from the countess. Aiden tells the guards that he and his wife are traitors, coming from the south to the north to take care of his sick mother. But the guard, smirking, tells them not to take him for a fool. Traitors don't have faces that white and pretty. Angelica finds it weird that this guy isn't arresting them on the spot or calling for backup. She decides to jump in, praising the guard's dedication, working late into the night for the good of Actilos. Angelica ditched most of her jewels, afraid they'd get her caught, but she kept a gold bracelet, which she just handed to the guard. The guy bites the metal to check if it's real, and once he's sure, he waves them through. As soon as they're past the gate, Angelica bursts into tears and tells Eden not to look back. He's clueless about what's got her so down and whether he should comfort her, but she just tells him to keep going. They ride out into a field covered in glowing flowers, and they just freeze for a second, stunned by the beauty. For a split second, Eden thinks the Empress is crying again, but when he turns around, he sees her laughing. Something about this washes over her with such relief, she can't hold back her emotions. All her days lately have been spent in a desperate struggle just to stay alive. Angelica has been constantly trying to dodge disasters, stay sharp, and never let her guard down. But now it doesn't matter if she screams or runs, because for the first time, she feels completely free. Meanwhile, a servant sent by the Countess knocks on the villa door to check on the Empress. He brought Angelica a package, but Saizen, grabbing the basket, sends the uninvited guest packing. Sylvia's happy about this visit because it means no one knows the Empress, and Eden left the villa last night. The decision to create a week-long gap between their departure was made to establish an alibi for the Empress. After all, when the maids-in-waiting are seen at the villa, it's natural to assume she's there. But when the maids disappear, it'll be unclear exactly when Angelica's entourage left the county, leading to confusion during the search. Resting on the trail, the Empress is worried about meeting Serafina, but Eden tells her not to sweat it. He also advises her to try not to think about Ranierro, because if she has even a shred of feeling for him, it could be painful. That night, sitting by the campfire, Angelica suddenly senses someone approaching and asks Eden to check his weapon. Startled, he asks her how she knew, and just then, the Empress, drawing her bow, is attacked. Without missing a beat, the girl blasts one of the attackers. Turns out he was their leader. Eden takes out another with his sword, but misjudges the swing and jams the blade in so deep he can't pull it out. The guy gets tagged in the arm, but Angelica's got his back. She takes out the attacker too. After dealing with the thugs, she patches up Eden's arm, and he's all like, "How did you even know they were coming?" Guess spending so much time in Actilos cranked Angelica's intuition up to 11. Even though they didn't get a proper rest, they decide to haul ass and get to that temple. Meanwhile, the Countess keeps getting the cold shoulder from the Empress, who's using her bad health as an excuse. Even though Sylvia and Saizen had those extra passes Eden swiped, they weren't using the checkpoint. They were sneaking through a loophole the locals used. When it came to greasing palms, Saizen didn't hold back, so the search party would be on their tail, thinking only the Empress could throw around that kind of cash. Ranierro dreams of Angelica confessing her love and wakes up totally freaked, 'cause he never dreams like ever. He can feel the devil breathing down his neck, whispering for him to forget everything except war, blood, and screams. Even though the squad's slower than the march to the Tunya Temple, His Majesty's army is still moving forward with purpose. The soldiers' morale is through the roof right now, since they've been itching to conquer the lands of Sombinia. It's this slow creep forward that's making them even more ruthless. Ranierro's positive that once the fighting starts, they'll steamroll the enemy army. The devil's loving this, because away from Angelica, the Emperor's back to listening to him. Duchess Nurm gets word of the Countess's visit, and she's pissed, because Anastasia's supposed to be hosting the Empress right now. In the drawing room, she finds a frantic woman yelling that she and the Duchess have been played. The Countess spills the beans about how the Empress asked to borrow her villa, and then just vanished. Nurm's hit with a wave of dread, because knowing how the Emperor cherishes his wife, anyone tied to her disappearance is going to be wiped off the map. Getting her head straight, she tells the Countess to chill and decides to sort everything out before the Emperor gets back. Anastasia figures Angelique split from the county a while ago, even if the Empress's disappearance was only found out this morning. After hearing her story, Nurma decides to check all the passes. Those runaways could have faked the documents. She also orders them to investigate that illegal road the poor folks are using. Angelique and Eden keep going, but the weather's super overcast, and the guy's worried it might start snowing. The Empress thinks they'll be fine, and this time, Eden trusts her gut feeling without a second thought. The girl keeps feeling like someone's whispering words in her ear, and following them makes their journey easier. One more time, listening to the voice and heading where it pointed, they see an abandoned house right in front of them. Going inside and looking around, the travelers find nobody's there and decide to crash at the house for the night. Eden heads off to find some firewood for the stove and asks Angelique to tie up the horses in the meantime. Under this roof, warming up by the fire, the girl's starting to feel a little peace of mind. Eden strikes up a conversation about her old life, and he's surprised how hard she struggles to even remember her real name. Angelica reminds him her past wasn't exactly a bed of roses, but still, she's running from this life, too, 'cause she can't be sure of anything here. Eden comes clean to her, admitting he really is a rich kid, just like she figured. Angelica laughs, asking if he's confessing all this just to brag. Suddenly leaning in close, Eden asks if a promise of financial help would give her the confidence to go back. He relays Sylvia's words, that Angelica doesn't love the Emperor and only picked him for protection. Maybe those words hit the mark, 'cause after landing here, she did everything she could to avoid upsetting Ranierro and just survive. And after winning him over and finally living a normal life, she kept manipulating him and dodging anything she didn't want to do. Getting right up in Angelica's face, hands cupping her cheeks, Eden asks if she'd really be okay if Ranierro died. Just like he figured, she's having a hard time answering that, and maybe her survival instincts are kicking in, but she's definitely sure that his death wouldn't exactly make her happy. Still, Angelica's not convinced she'd be weeping and wailing about it for the rest of her days. Even though his face keeps popping into her head during these talks, it's just 'cause she's still got some attachment issues. But when she finally got over those feelings and bolted from Actilos, that feeling of relief was real as hell. I mean, that nightmare that had her chained up all that time, it vanished the day she left. It's day 17 since they bailed from the Dawsino villa. The weather's getting rough, but they're almost there. Eden's worried they'll be late and might run into the Emperor at the temple. But a voice wrapping around Angelica whispers to her that ain't gonna happen. Her legs are shot, she can't walk anymore, so Eden scoops her up, 'cause they can't stop now. And finally, frozen and beat, they make it to the Temple of Tunya and head inside. The archbishop who greeted them asks Eden what happened and why he's back. Angelica reminds the bishop who she is and tells him about their escape from Actilos. Dropping to her knees, she begs the servants of God for mercy, a place to sleep, and some food. Eden tries to bring the Empress around, but she's completely out of it on the floor. Suddenly, she realizes she's remembering Ranierro's face again, and doesn't get why, 'cause she's genuinely scared of him. But one memory after another flashes before her eyes, and she blacks out. When Angelica comes to, she's totally disoriented, 'cause the temple room she stayed in with Ranierro looked different. The door swings open, and Serafina's standing there with a plate of food, explaining that this is her room. Meanwhile, at the foot of the mountain, near the Sambinia border, the Imperial army is stalled because of the bad weather. Ranierro decides to turn back, but they might run out of supplies, so they gotta swing by the Temple of Tunya on the way. After feeding Angelica, Serafina wonders how the girl managed to trek through the frozen wasteland for 17 days. The saint asks the Empress to explain why she ran away from Actilos. Originally, Eden was supposed to talk to Serafina, but he's out cold right now, and Angelica asks if he's spoken to the saint at all. Serafina confesses she's confused about the guy, 'cause the man who despised her suddenly got kicked out of the temple for confessing his feelings for her. She figures it can't be a coincidence, 'cause a few months later, he's back at the temple with the Empress. That's why Serafina couldn't meet with Eden. She was scared and bummed out, just like she figured. Unlike what she read in that novel, the emotions of someone right next to her feel totally different to Angelica. She finally decides to tell Serafina briefly that the Emperor of Actilos will be arriving at the temple soon. Suddenly, starting to choke and terrified of what she's about to say, Angelica begs the saint to kill him. The girl is shaking all over, hearing Ranierro's gentle voice in her head, and she pleads with Serafina for mercy. Saint Tunya tells her to chill, but Angelica's like, "Nah, this is in your best interest, too." But she can't just blurt out that Ranierro's gonna try to ruin and destroy Serafina, so she just says it's for Eden's sake too. When asked how she knows all this, Angelica spills the beans about the prophecy book she found in the shrine. Pulling the book out of her bag, the Empress shows it to the saint, warning her that only she can read what's written inside. Opening the book, Seraphina sees for herself that the pages are actually blank. Angelica says that Eden knows about this prophecy too, because according to it, he's supposed to die by Ranierro's hand. Seraphina's floored by what she's hearing, but the Empress gets that it's a tough pill to swallow. Angelica also reveals that, according to the prophecy, she's supposed to kick the bucket first. To the Empress's surprise, the saint takes it all in stride, saying she believes her and that she's really sorry to hear that. Lying in bed, Angelica's thinking about Seraphina's reaction. Because even though the saint understood, something about it just feels off. Stepping out of the temple and facing the crowd, Seraphina announces the Emperor's massive army will be arriving here soon. Tunya already got help from Ranierro, and now they can't turn their backs on those who need a hand in this storm. People are freaked, but everything the saint says is basically gospel, and they're figuring out how to house the army. After seeing Seraphina address the people, Eden realizes she's finally made her move. Ranierro, knocking on the temple door, is told by the archbishop that they were expecting him. Sitting in the prayer room where no one's allowed, Angelica hears the commotion outside and knows the emperor's arrived. Ever since she was locked in this prayer room, the only thing on her mind was Ranierro leaving ASAP. But it's been 3 days and he's still here. Nobody's been in the room, but they always leave a plate of food next to the door. According to the original story, these two should have already had their fateful meeting, and Angelica can't figure out why he's still around. Suddenly, the prayer room door swings open. The girl jumps up, thinking Seraphina's back. But it's Eden. He's pissed when he finds out the saint hasn't been seen around here for 3 days. Where the hell did she go? Eden wants to go look for her, but Angelica grabs his arm, begging him to stay. She asks if the Emperor's still here. He clutches his head, says the situation's changed. Ranierro still hasn't met with Seraphina. Eden thinks the saint, who was supposed to greet the Emperor at the temple, is deliberately avoiding him. He's changing the plan. He's gonna get to the sanctuary before Seraphina offs Ranierro. There's 10,000 soldiers camped out in Tunya and the surrounding villages, living and eating in people's homes. When the archbishop said they just couldn't take care of everyone, the Emperor threw a bag of coins on the ground. But these people live by trade. Gold's worthless to them. Ranierro knew that. He did it on purpose. Either way, if Seraphina kills the Emperor and the soldiers are left without a leader, they'll tear this place apart. So he and Angelica need to get out of here before that happens. Eden tells her to focus on 2 things, and 2 things only right now: Actilos' blood and the Tunya sword. Suddenly, the guy tells Angelica to shut up for a sec, because he thinks someone's close by. Ranierro pops out from around the corner, thinking he heard his wife's voice.